Okay, so hi everybody, and welcome to our new pharma segment that we do at really kind of 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. We're going to talk about organs and the endocannabinoid system. I'm really going to mainly drill into how we eat, so how we kind of control our stomach functions and how all of that works. Um, but should be fun, should be interesting. I hope it'll be interesting. So real quick, again, anytime you listen to one of my things, you got to go through the 1, 2, 3s of the endocannabinoid system. So one of the things that we're seeing is right now we're all a little broke down, we're all a little malnourished. And again, when we talk about the endocannabinoid system, don't let yourself necessarily trigger to cannabis. Everybody does this. It's just crazy. It's like cognitive dissonance. It's like kind of the word is charmed or something. So we're trying to break that. We need to break that, right? Because again, the endocannabinoid system has as much to do with cannabis as your endorphin system has to do with morphine. Okay. So they certainly are related, and cannabis has completely helped us map out the endocannabinoid system. But I'm talking about a lot more, than just cannabis. This is how we work and how we operate, and how your dog operates and your cat operates and your fish operates and your bird operates and everything but your ant farm operates. Okay. So let's kind of go through, and again, in our world, we're kind of malnourished because we don't understand this stuff yet. Pretty easy to fix, frankly, as we understand the resources that we need. So we're kind of seeing this with this new virus, right? So we understand that when something new comes into our environment, that we have to have additional resources to fight that thing off. So again, we don't really understand that real well yet, but we're starting to. And when we do, my gosh, will our situation improve? Will our health improve? Will our lifespan improve? Will our healthcare costs improve? So everything will get better. So real quick, let's talk about this endocannabinoid system thing. So, and again, this is going to be kind of an interesting discussion because I kind of point to old thinking of something that you have called your endocrine system that kind of regulates hormones. And that used to be how we thought that we regulated our body's functions, because we do regulate a whole lot with this system. So we know that hormones are in steroids, things like that, are the things that we use to regulate our organs. So I don't know about you guys, I'm pretty old, but back in high school, what I was taught was that hormones were what did everything. They're what regulated everything in our body. They were kind of our master regulatory system. Well, we kind of know now there's some problems with that model, right? So hormones certainly regulate things, no question about that. And we're going to get right into how all that works, which is kind of cool. But they're not your master regulatory. There's no intelligence there, right? So you have a pituitary axis that does what it's told, when it's told, and releases hormones. Okay? So, but again, it ain't smart. It needs some function above it to be able to manipulate basically your regulatory. I mean, surely we're at a point where we can all accept that our body has to have some regulation, and that regulation has to be under some kind of intelligent control. And that certainly comes from our hypothalamus hippocampus. But anyway, we're going to get into a lot more about that. But old thinking said hormones, and again, we're going to talk about new thinking a little bit. So 3 points about the endocannabinoid system. Again, and what I'm trying to do when I repeat this over and over and over is give you guys a foundation, a basis for kind of thinking, if you will. So again, if I can lay down this basis, and if I can get you guys to really understand what I'm really talking about here, you're going to see the world different. Frankly, you're certainly going to see your body different. And you're certainly going to see how you function and behave different, and your kids and your husband or your wife, or, whatever your situation is, your mother, your father, your grandfather, your grandmother, right? So again, when we understand this, we have the keys to health. I see all the time on social media, release the cures. I'm like, we have it. It's right here. But anyway, let's try to get there. All right. So point 1 about the endocannabinoid system. It's really old. We developed it in something called a C-squirt. See this guy down here, this little fella? He's there's not much to him, but he had an endocannabinoid system. He didn't really have a central nervous system. He kind of had a little bit of a brain and a little bit of a basic central nervous and a spine. He could flick his tail, but he had an endocannabinoid system that probably regulated everything. That's point two. We'll get there in a second. But anyway, from this guy, insects went one way and everything else on the planet went the other. Okay? So if you've got a dog, your dog has an endocannabinoid system. If you have a lizard, your lizard has an endocannabinoid system. If you have a fish, it has one. A bird has one. All these things have endocannabinoid systems. What I'm telling you is, do all these things have legs? Do all these things have eyes? Do all these things have livers? Do all these things have stomachs? Again, we develop things very early and basic, and we develop this system before we develop most of the early and basic stuff. That should tell us all how crazy important this system is. Okay, point two about it is it's looking to be our master regulatory system. So what does that mean? Well, and again, satisfy yourself to the amount of research. NIH.gov, endocannabinoid, and it doesn't really matter. Endocannabinoid and immune is fun. That's hundreds of thousands of studies. Endocannabinoid and cancer is fun. That's hundreds of thousands of studies. Endocannabinoid and toe fungus or endocannabinoid and parasite control, you might only find 5 or 6, but you'll probably find studies. Okay? So go satisfy yourself. But as you read those studies, what becomes absolutely apparent and very clear is that this system regulates something, right? So some come to the conclusion it just regulates their silo, or it's regulating the thing that they're looking at, or it's regulating your everything. But, and again, most researchers here are agreeing it's our master regulatory system. It regulates every function about us, except how we adjust our enzyme expression, which may be a little bit higher system that we'll talk about some other time. Okay, so what does this mean practically, okay? Well, what this means practically is that we work kind of like our car, okay? So we understand that in our vehicle, we have a computer, and that computer is always watching every single aspect of our vehicle. So is our oil pressure okay? How's our valve pressure? What's the temperature of our tires, you know, or tire pressure? Do we need windshield wiper fluid? What's the exhaust looking like? Catalytic converter temperature? All these things are being monitored, right? And if one gets out of whack, bang, 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 we have warning bells that go off. Huh, it's kind of an interesting, furthers the analogy with a warning bell. But anyway, bang, 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 we have warning bells that go off. And so, you know, we address those issues, and generally we address those issues with what? Resources, right? So I need water for my windshield wiper fluid. I need oil for my engine. I need to redo my valves or redo my exhaust or whatever. So have to make tweaks and adjustments to that system, but I'm always trying to get it to perfect balance, perfect homeostasis, right? Perfect function. Well, guess what? You work in a very similar way. In our world, at least, in the new pharma world. So we are a disbalanced system, always trying to get to homeostasis. And the only barrier to doing that is point 3, the system is fueled by natural resources. So we have to have the resources that we need to be able to run all our major systems, but in particular our endocannabinoid system, because it runs everything about us. If you don't have the resources to inflame, you know, what happens? That would be bad, right? In fact, we have way too many resources to inflame, and that's equally bad because we're all inflamed. So again, and now I illustrate this really with a dopamine and serotonin example. If you go back last week, we talked quite a bit about dopamine and serotonin and brain function and how the endocannabinoid regulates all of that. So the endocannabinoid sits above dopamine and serotonin in function and control. But just real quick, we all kind of understand dopamine and serotonin, and that without it, we're depressed Parkinson's patients. So again, we don't function well. We can't think, we have brain fog, we can't run our mood, we're not stable at all. And we're just, not good mentally and psychologically, okay, without dopamine and serotonin. So give me some more, give me some more. I want a lot of dopamine and serotonin. How do I get that? Dopamine and serotonin come from precursors, and in particular, L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine, which is not really that important. You're not really in danger. Eat a lot of meat, eggs, fish, things like that. You'll get enough L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine. But the point of the story is this. If I put you in a box and I pulled all those amino acids out of that stuff, and I denied you all L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine and all omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, because they can be broken down to L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine. But if I denied you L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine, whoop, doesn't take long either. You can't make dopamine and serotonin. If I come scare you, boo, you have a fight or flight event, boop, now you're a depressed Parkinson's patient. Might take you an hour, otherwise, but again, one fight or flight and you're baked. You've depleted all your dopamine and serotonin and you can't rebuild more. And we know what happens then. So I'm using this to illustrate a point. If I give you L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine biscuit, here, eat your L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine biscuit. Now you're building dopamine and serotonin again. Now you can run your mood. Now you can run your mind, okay? Really important that you guys get this point, okay? So hopefully I'm really driving it home, because it's very important that we have L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine, or we're a depressed Parkinson's patient, okay? And I know you guys understand this, but I want you to apply this same thinking to your endocannabinoid system. It's a resource-driven system. We have to have anandamide to control our body. Anandamide is a ligand. It's a neurotransmitter, and it plugs into your CB1 neuroreceptor. That's how you control your body. If your body's doing work, this is how it's happening. It's controlled by FAAH, fatty acid hydrolase. Again, we have to understand this because we don't know what resources we need. We don't. And what's happening is we're breaking. Again, I go through this all the time. Are we breaking in our immune system? Well, 8 out of 10 of you guys are going to die of inflammation. Are we leading physician complaint is, doc, I hurt. Cancer is immune break. COVID is an immune break. Are we breaking in our immune system? We're driving a hoopty, friends. Are we breaking in feeding and craving? Are we breaking in how we take in nutrients? Are we obese? Do we have IBS? Do we have Crohn's? Do we have diabetes? Do we have type 2 diabetes? We're breaking in every way imaginable. And it's only because we do not understand this. It's so easy to fix. It's an L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine biscuit. Okay, so enough about that. That's our current state. So let's talk about how our current state applies to our endocrine system. I said endorphin system before, I apologize, but it's endocrine system is where our hormones are translated. Morphine was used to map out our endorphin system, which is kind of our energy system. Okay, so then serotonin, all that, right? So anyway, but how do your organs work? So let's talk about your endocrine system, all right? So your endocrine system, and again, this used to be what, I was taught in high school was our regulatory. So we have this kind of soup of hormones that do things, but what do these hormones do? Well, it's looking like they absolutely are what up and down regulate our organs. And again, if you think about how your organs work, they're very binary, right? So they're kind of upregulated or downregulated, upregulated or downregulated. You're hungry or you're not, you're sleepy or you're not, right? So it's up and down regulated, which again is a control thing, right? So, but your organs are absolutely controlled by this hormone and hormone exchange. And again, you can kind of run through these hormones and see the different functions that they play, but they're very, very important functions. Now, again, to intervene, like I think I'll go take some cortisol. That's probably not a good idea. Again, you have some things on here that, potentially are, But it's kind of, this is pretty low in the system, right? So how hormones work, they're trying to regulate our organs, and it's pretty low level function. So you know, if you can help it, you don't want to get in the middle of that. So again, you don't want to be, and I know a lot of people do this, supplement with testosterone or estrogen or things like that, but you're really getting in the middle of a lot of stuff, and there's better ways to solve that problem, okay? But we're going to talk about this. So again, the way that your hormones, the way that your organs are up and down regulated are through hormones, right? And hormones come from your endocrine system. Again, you can kind of see there what they regulate, and you can go down and see what each hormone does. But let's talk a little bit about the endocrine and its relationship to the endocannabinoid system. Because again, you have something that's your pituitary axis, and your hypothalamus controls that, right? Your pituitary gland and pituitary axis. But you also have your hypothalamus that really controls this endocannabinoid system. So there's a lot of crossover, you know, between these two, but the higher function definitely is in the endocannabinoid. And this study actually indicates that pretty well. It does make some interesting kind of assumptions about CB1 expression in the hypothalamus. So if you're interested, there's some interesting stuff kind of in this, and it's a summary study, so it has a lot of information. But let me just read this real quick. So within the central nervous system, the endocannabinoid system mediates activity-dependent retrograde signaling in many brain regions, including the hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and cerebellum. So again, when you have retrograde signaling, that sort of backfires, if you will. And backfires are almost complete. In fact, backfires were only discovered after the discovery of the endocannabinoid system because of the discovery of the endocannabinoid system. But retrograde signaling was only discovered in about 2000. So it's interesting. That's a 2003 study. That's pretty early on. So again, that might have moved past that particular statement, but that particular statement's pretty powerful. All right, so CB1s are present in the hypothalamus at relatively low density compared to other brain regions. However, it is argued that this population of cannabinoid receptors is highly active given the broad range of endocrine effects of the cannabinoids. Okay, so again, you don't have a lot of CB1s in your hypothalamus, but you have your hypothalamus controlling a lot of what your CB1s do. And it's the hypothalamus is kind of, again, it's the brain in our vehicle, if you will. So, and it has a lot to do, the way that it kind of works is a lot with satiety points with endocannabinoids building and falling, building and falling. Certainly the way that you feed and crave has to do with an endocannabinoid level that builds and falls. And again, the hypothalamus is also what's controlling this pituitary axis, which releases hormones. So there's a lot of crossover, but that crossover, again, is in the hypothalamus and the endocannabinoid as it's controlling the pituitary, all right? So what causes the pituitary to release, testosterone, right? Or create testosterone in the gonads? That's endocannabinoid system action for the most part. Okay, and then the hypothalamus is an important center for the regulation of metabolism, reproduction, and responses to stress. And again, if you think about it, we don't do a whole lot more than that. Although the density of the CB1R in the hypothalamus is lower than other brain regions, it is clear from a vast number of studies that the endocannabinoid system plays a highly significant role in hypothalamic function through regulation of neurotransmitter release from glutamatergic, GABAergic, and possible other nerve terminals. So again, you've got a lot of releases of other neurotransmitters and control items that happen because of the endocannabinoid system. Okay, so let's go through a good example. And again, this is leptin. We're going to talk about leptin and ghrelin. So if you've ever heard of leptin and ghrelin, leptin is what makes you feel full, and ghrelin is really what makes you have stomach cramps and feel like you're hungry. I got to eat. Okay, so it's really kind of cool how these work. And if you look at how we function, really how we eat, how we feed and crave, and how we nourish our bodies is a major function. That and how we kind of fight off COVID-19 and, traumas in our immune system is another major function. But, we wouldn't If those two fail, we're going to have real problems. And again, we're driving hoopties. They're failing. That's what I'm telling you. I'm trying to kind of tell you that. But as we understand this, again, those won't fail like they do. But let's talk about how we eat. So again, we eat, and it's called feeding and craving, if you want to kind of go down the science path. But we feed and crave in a very similar way that a dog does, or a cat does, or I'm not sure about a lizard. Frankly, I haven't looked at that. But mammals all kind of feed and crave in the same way. So how does that work? Well, literally, your hypothalamus hippocampus is watching your body for need in a very similar way that we were talking about a computer in your vehicle is kind of watching all the systems in your car, right? So it's always watching for kind of, do you need anything? Do you need anything? Do you need anything? You got enough? Got enough resource? Got enough resource? Got enough resource? Got enough resource? And if you don't, you get a warning light. But in this case, your warning light, this is why I like that. Somehow that just happened. But anyway, your warning light in this case is you're going to release ghrelin and get hungry because you need nutrients, right? You need things. So this is the way that our bodies tell us that we need things. We get hungry. Isn't that kind of cool? Have you ever thought about it that way? Have you ever thought about your body as just saying, I need nourishment. I got to feed some cells. I got to make some neurotransmitters. I got to make some dopamine and serotonin so you don't crash and burn, right? Your body's just telling you things. I need nourishment. I have to build things. I need to run you. It is very difficult. Feed me, Seymour, feed me. So how does that all work, right? So again, what happens is endocannabinoids literally in your hypothalamus, as it determines that you need things. And again, have we got this figured out? I don't have a study on this one, folks. It works this way, but no one's really deeply researched this yet. Come on. But anyway, hypothalamus hippocampus is monitoring your body probably down to the cellular. Again, no one's researched that, but every cell will pop out a CB1, can be talked to, can be controlled. This guy is probably under the control of the hypothalamus hippocampus, right? He's doing intelligent work. So anyway, but my cell here, he's screaming out. He needs something. He needs whatever, anandamide, okay? So how does that work in your body? So again, what it does is your hypothalamus collects all of this data, and as it collects a new piece of data, it kind of adds another piece of anandamide. It builds anandamide in your hypothalamus. Doink, 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 doink. When it gets high enough, your hypothalamus cues your pituitary axis through the endocannabinoid system to release a hormone called ghrelin. And ghrelin is what gives you hunger pains. So again, you're monitoring just like your car does, you're monitoring your vehicle, so to speak, for cellular need, for nutrient need, for neurotransmitter need, for stem cell need, for whatever it is. You're constantly monitoring your vehicle. And again, when you need something, you're telling your hypothalamus, hippocampus, go get it for me. And it does it in the only way that it knows how. It makes you hungry. How cool is that? So anyway, but you do it through these two hormones called leptin and ghrelin. So this is a good example of the endocannabinoid system kind of as a master system using a very strong regulatory system underneath it to kind of manage and regulate your body. So it's regulating this. This is kind of through this action is regulating things beneath it. So it's kind of an indirect, if you will, action. But how you monitor those nutrients as you're eating, I mean, again, it's a whole nother talk, but can you monitor nutrients through inflamed pipes, right? If your gut is inflamed, can you really properly monitor nutrients? No. And again, this is why a lot of us are obese, is because we don't get the feedback. So you have a lot of CB1 neuroreceptors expressed through something called your vagal afferent nerve. And it's this giant nerve that runs from your hippocampus hypothalamus all the way around your gut and through your gut. And it is loaded with CB1 neuroreceptors, which just tells you that it's very active endocannabinoid-wise. Okay, so again, let's just recap this real quick because I think, hopefully you guys find this fascinating. Is it, you're just kind of this machine, really. And again, we're a lot more than that in my mind. We certainly are, the spiritual being attached to that, but we work in a very predictable and logical way is kind of what I'm getting at. And again, once we understand that, it's easy to fix, or it will be easy to fix. And that sounds a little flip and arrogant, and I don't mean it to be, but as we really dive into research, and I don't mean by any means that I fully understand this, but we have to dive into research, right? So we really have to get in and understand how this system works, understand what it's doing here, understand how we can get in the middle of these things and change things that are dysregulated. Because again, in our world, it's looking like most of the things that are wrong with us are just simple dysregulations. Again, what's diabetes? What's a seizure? What's autism? What is inflammation? What is pain? What is not being able to sleep? Those are just dysregulations in this system. That's why cannabis works as a solution. That's why other natural products work. That's why melatonin works. Again, you're getting in the middle of the system with an amino acid that helps you sleep, right? Hopefully you guys are getting it. Resource-driven system. Okay. So again, I would leave it here for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the thread, and I will certainly look at them. Hopefully you're getting a picture of the power and importance of the endocannabinoid system and the major role that it plays in our body's regulation. And again, in our world, we're a bit malnourished in that system, but as we understand that, it's very easy to provide nutrients to this system. Again, I would ask you to watch our talk on brain function or on autism, the autism ADHD talk. Talks a lot about how you can manipulate this system with resources and be able to bring it into balance. So anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and we will leave it here for